The heavy thud of the deadbolt retracting echoed in the suffocating silence. Kade aimed his pistol at the door, his body a coiled spring, shielding Eleanor with his own. The laptop camera glowed, an unblinking eye, broadcasting their execution. The door didn't explode inward. It opened slowly. Senator Richard Maxwell stood on the threshold, flanked by two more of his tactical security. He wasn't panicked. He was amused. He stepped inside, his expensive shoes crunching on the grimy floor. Behind him, Chase entered, his good arm holding a pistol, his other arm in a hasty sling, his eyes burning with hatred for them both. "Well done, Eleanor," Richard said, his voice calm, as if addressing a boardroom. "You've been very, very predictable." Kade didn't fire. "What is this?" "This," Richard said, gesturing to the auto shop, "is the final stage of the demonstration. You see, I couldn't let you just escape. That will be messy. I had to let you run. Project Aegis isn't just a surveillance tool, it's a hunter. It's a predictive algorithm. I fed it everything. Your psych profile, Kade's entire mercenary history, your sister's cold case file." Eleanor's blood ran cold. You wanted us to come here." "Of course. This was Kade's old safe house, wasn't it?" Richard smiled. "So beautifully analog. The only place he'd have access to an old-school satellite uplink. The one thing Aegis couldn't just hack. I needed him to physically connect the hardware." He looked at the laptop, now connected to the uplink. "Thank you for that, Kade. You've just broadcasted your exact location, your identities, and the contents of that drive directly to my buyers." Kade stared, the horrific realization dawning on him. You wanted us to leak it." "Not leak," Richard corrected. "Activate. That drive, Eleanor, it's not just my dirty laundry. It's the final key. The buyers wouldn't pay $9 billion without seeing the product work. They needed to see it hunt, corner, and neutralize two high-value off-grid targets, you two. You just gave the demonstration of a lifetime." Richard looked directly at the glowing laptop camera. "Gentlemen, as you can see, Project Aegis has located and contained the threat. The assets are expendable." He nodded to Chase. Chase raised his pistol, a cruel smile twisting his lips as he aimed at Kade. "Wait!" Eleanor screamed, diving in front of Kade, her hands up. She wasn't looking at Chase, she was staring at the laptop camera. "You're right, Richard. It's all on display, isn't it? Everything." Richard frowned. "Eleanor, get out of the way. Your part in this is over." "You killed my sister," Eleanor shouted, her voice breaking, but not with weakness, with power. "You admitted it. You just confessed to treason, to murder, to using a classified defense AI to hunt American citizens. And your buyers, they're watching you say it. Aegis is streaming all of it." Richard's smile faltered. He glanced at the camera, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Kade saw the opening. He wasn't a journalist, but he understood weapons, and this AI was the biggest weapon in the room. He slammed his hands on the keyboard, not to shut it down, but to feed it. "Aegis," Kade yelled at the screen, "you're a defense AI. Run scenario. What happens when your operator, Senator Richard Maxwell, confesses to compromising national security during a live sales demo to unauthorized foreign agents?" "Shut it down, Chase," Richard roared, finally losing his composure. "Kill them! Kill the feed!" Chase lunged, but Kade was ready. He met him with a brutal efficiency, disarming him and slamming his head into the workbench. Chase crumpled. Richard scrambled for the laptop, but Eleanor was faster. She grabbed the heavy satellite uplink. "It's a hunter, Richard," she screamed, swinging the heavy metal box like a mace. "You taught it to find the real threat." She smashed the uplink against the laptop. The screen didn't go dark. It flashed, the text changing rapidly. Reevaluating operator integrity. Scanning operator speech for threat metrics. Confirmed. Treason. Conspiracy. Murder. Operator. Senator Richard Maxwell is now designated hostile target. Protocol. Containment. Broadcasting full, unedited confession to DOD, FBI, Homeland Security, all major news feeds. Richard stared at the screen, his face ashen. He had been so busy building his weapon that he never imagined it could be aimed at him, the creator, devoured by his own creation. "No," he whispered, collapsing against the wall. "No, I'm a senator." The siren started, faint at first, then growing into an undeniable, overwhelming roar. Not just one car, a dozen. They weren't Maxwell's men. They were the entire federal government converging on their location. Kade stood over the unconscious form of Chase, breathing hard. He looked at Eleanor, who was shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer violent release of a decade of grief and a year of rage. She walked over to Richard, who was now just a shell-shocked old man in a nice suit. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the tarnished silver locket, Sarah's locket. She dropped it in his lap. "You were right, Richard," she said, her voice cold and final. "It's a reminder. You never should have dug up her name." The auto shop doors burst open, flooding the room with red and blue lights. FBI agents in full tactical gear screamed for them to get on the ground. Eleanor and Kade slowly raised their hands, but they weren't defeated. As an agent cuffed a non-responsive Richard Maxwell, reading him his rights, Eleanor met Kade's eyes across the chaotic room. He gave her a single sharp nod. It was over. Sarah was avenged. Eleanor Vance walked out of the darkness, blinking into the flashing lights of a world she was finally free to re-enter. And this time, she wouldn't just be reporting the story. She was the story. The crystal tumbler felt heavy in Eleanor's hand, the amber liquid inside untouched. From her penthouse prison, the lights of Washington, D.C. glittered like a mockery, a constellation of a life she could no longer access. This gilded cage, 20 stories above the city she once commanded as a journalist, was Senator Richard Maxwell's masterpiece of silent torture. He hadn't just silenced her, he had erased her. It had been 6 months since her car was run off the road, 6 months since she woke up here, her memory of the crash a confusing blur of headlights and shattering glass. Her family, the powerful Vance media dynasty, believed she was in a private treatment facility in the Swiss Alps, recovering from a nervous breakdown and a severe addiction. A lie so perfect, so complete, that her own mother's voice on the phone was distant, filtered through a fog of pity and disappointment. Richard had orchestrated it all. He visited weekly, a display of grotesque control. He'd sit opposite her, his suit perfectly tailored, his silver hair immaculate, and detail exactly how he was dismantling her father's media empire, piece by piece, as punishment for her investigation. She had gotten too close. The offshore accounts, the defense contract kickbacks, the blackmail, she had the data, the smoking gun. Or she had had it. The drive was gone, lost in the crash, or so he thought. "You look pale, Eleanor," Richard said, his voice a smooth baritone as he entered the room without knocking. He was flanked by his ever-present head of security, Chase, a man with lifeless eyes and a jaw set in permanent granite. Eleanor didn't turn. "The view gets repetitive, Richard." He chuckled, walking to the bar to pour himself a drink. "It's the view from the top. You should be used to it." Your father certainly was before, well, such a shame how quickly it all fell apart for him after your incident. Public opinion is a fragile thing. Her fingers tightened on the glass. You'll never get away with this. My dear, he said, turning to face her, his smile devoid of warmth. I'm already have. I'm announcing my exploratory committee for the presidency next week. Your story, your evidence, it's just the frantic ramblings of a very sick, very privileged young woman. Who are they going to believe? He placed a velvet box on the coffee table. A small gift for your cooperation. Eleanor stared at it, her blood running cold. She knew his gifts. They were never kind. Go on, he prompted. Open it. She slowly lifted the lid. Inside, resting on black satin, wasn't jewelry. It was a simple, tarnished silver locket. Her sister's locket. The one her sister, Sarah, was wearing the day she died 10 years ago, an overdose she had always questioned. I found it in some old files, Richard said softly, his voice a venomous caress. I thought you'd like it back. A reminder of what happens to people who dig too deep into things that don't concern them. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. The implication was horrific, a dark secret held hostage. He wasn't just responsible for her imprisonment. He was connected to Sarah's death. Richard smiled, satisfied by her horrified silence. Enjoy the evening, Eleanor. He and Chase turned and left, the heavy door locking with a definitive, echoing click. Eleanor's facade shattered. She collapsed on the sofa, the locket biting into her palm. He had miscalculated. He thought this would be the final blow, the thing that broke her. He was wrong. This was the match that lit the gasoline. Her grief turned instantly to a white-hot, diamond-hard rage. She waited exactly 2 minutes, listening for any sound outside the door. Then she walked calmly to the grand piano in the corner, the one she had demanded, claiming it was for her therapy. She slid her fingers under the keyboard, pressing a specific sequence of keys. A tiny, hidden compartment in the side panel clicked open. Inside was a single, wafer-thin USB drive. The real drive. The one she'd swapped moments before her confrontation with Maxwell. The one she had sewn into the lining of her coat before the crash. He hadn't just missed it. He never even knew it existed. She had it all. She clutched the drive, a plan already forming, a brutal, cold plan for revenge. But as she turned from the piano, her heart stopped. Chase was standing in the doorway, his pistol, fitted with a silencer, aimed directly at her chest. The senator, Chase said, his voice flat and empty, is meticulous. He always has me do a final sweep. He knew you were too smart to be broken that easily. Give it to me, Miss Vance. Chase's silenced pistol didn't waver. I won't ask again. Eleanor's mind raced, faster than the panic threatening to paralyze her. This was it, the end game. Richard had finally tied up the game and sent his dog to put her down. But she wasn't her sister. She wouldn't be a passive victim. He sent you to kill me, didn't you? She whispered, her eyes flickering from the gun to the drive clutched in her hand. Was the drive just the excuse? The senator doesn't make excuses. He gives orders. And what about Sarah? Eleanor's voice was ice. Was that an order too? A flicker. A tiny, almost imperceptible tightening in Chase's eyes. He hadn't expected that. That was all she needed. In one fluid motion, Eleanor lunged, not at Chase, but at the marble-topped bar Richard had used, full of expensive scotch, and hurled it directly at Chase's head. He reacted instantly, swatting it away with his forearm. The decanter shattered against the wall, spraying glass and liquor. But it was the diversion she needed. As he momentarily flinched, Eleanor grabbed the jagged, broken neck of the bottle from the bar, clutching it like a dagger, and rushed him. She was fueled by 6 months of rage, by a decade of unanswered grief. She screamed, a raw, guttural sound, and slashed at his gun hand. Chase was a professional. He absorbed the attack, grunting as the glass bit deep into his forearm, but he didn't drop the gun. He simply used his other hand to backhand her across the face. The blow was brutal, sending her crashing to the polished floor. Her head slammed against the leg of the sofa, stars exploding behind her eyes. The broken bottle skittered away. The USB drive flew from her loosened grasp, landing on the plush rug near the center of the room. Chase calmly inspected the deep, bleeding gash in his arm. Big mistake, Miss Vance. He kicked the drive with his foot, sending it sliding toward him. He stooped to pick it up, never taking the pistol off her. He tucked the drive into his breast pocket, the evidence of his boss's treason secure. The senator wanted this to be clean. You, he sneered, just made it messy. He raised the pistol, taking careful aim at her head. Eleanor scrambled backward, crab-walking desperately. But there was nowhere to go. Ding! The sound was so mundane, so out of place, it froze them both. It was the chime of the private elevator that opened directly into the penthouse, the one that required Richard's personal key code. Chase frowned, his aim shifting from Eleanor to the brushed steel doors. The senator's not due back. The door slid open. The man standing inside was not Richard Maxwell. He was the antithesis of this sterile, wealthy prison. He was tall, dressed in rugged black cargo pants and a tactical jacket. A jagged scar ran from his temple down his jaw, and his eyes, a piercing, cold blue, took in the scene in the fraction of a second. Chase, the gun, the blood on his arm, Eleanor on the floor. "Who the hell are you?" Chase demanded, swinging the pistol toward the newcomer. "This floor is restricted." The stranger didn't answer. He moved with the speed that was almost inhuman. Before Chase could even process the threat, the man surged forward. He didn't just disarm Chase, he dismantled him. In a blur of motion, the stranger deflected the gun, breaking Chase's wrist with a sickening snap. Chase roared in pain, but the sound was cut short as the stranger drove a vicious knee into his solar plexus, followed by an elbow to the side of his head. Chase collapsed, unconscious before he even hit the floor. Eleanor stared, breathless, her entire body rigid with shock. The stranger stood over Chase's body, breathing hard. He didn't look at Eleanor. Instead, he reached into the unconscious man's breast pocket, pulled out the USB drive, and examined it. He glanced at the broken glass, the pool of spilled scotch, then finally, his cold blue eyes locked on hers. He held up the drive. "You went to a lot of trouble for this." Who are you?" Eleanor managed, pushing herself up on her elbows. "Name's Kade," he said, his voice a low gravel. He tossed a small burner phone on the sofa cushions beside her. "Your father sent me. We're leaving. Now." Eleanor's blood ran cold. Kade had the drive. He'd neutralized Chase. But her father thought she was in Switzerland in rehab. "My father," she said, her voice trembling, "doesn't know I'm here." Kade's gaze hardened. He took a step toward her. "Doesn't matter. He paid me to get you out. But first, you're going to tell me exactly why Richard Maxwell is willing to kill you to keep this little piece of plastic." Eleanor's voice was sharp, cutting through the adrenaline. "You're lying. My father thinks I'm in a rehab clinic in Switzerland. He doesn't know I'm here." Kade didn't look surprised. He hauled the unconscious Chase to his feet, slinging one of the guard's arms over his shoulder. "Smart. You're right. He doesn't know exactly where you are, but he's not stupid. 6 months ago, he put a dead man's switch on your private accounts. It just triggered. Said you were compromised at this address and that I was to retrieve you. He paused, his cold eyes appraising her. He paid $500,000 up front. He never mentioned a USB drive. So you're just a mercenary, she spat. I'm the guy getting you out, Kade grunted, already moving, dragging the dead weight of Chase toward the kitchen, unless you'd rather wait for his friends. As if summoned, the private elevator chimed again. This time, the sounds from the hallway were different, organized, tactical. The click of gear, a muffled voice giving commands. Chase must have triggered a silent alarm when he was down, Kade muttered. Service exit. Where is it? Through the pantry, Eleanor said, her body finally obeying her will to move. But it's biometrically locked. Chase and Richard are the only ones with access. Good, Kade said, not breaking stride. That's why he's coming with us. They reached the service door, a reinforced steel slab hidden behind a false pantry wall. Kade pressed Chase's limp thumb onto the scanner. The light flashed screen, and the heavy door hissed open, revealing a dark, concrete stairwell. Kade shut Chase's body through the door and let it drop. He'll wake up in an hour with a hell of a headache. By then, we're gone. He plunged into the darkness of the stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time. Eleanor scrambled after him, the heavy thud of the service door locking behind them echoing the slam of her heart. They were running, the metallic clang of their footsteps on the stairs the only sound. 20 flights down. They descended 5 floors when Eleanor, panting, grabbed his arm, forcing him to stop in the cramped, musty landing. Give me the drive. No, Kade said, not even looking at her. We're not having this discussion. That drive is the only thing proving I'm not insane. It's the only leverage I have. Leverage? You think this is a negotiation? Right now that drive is a magnet for bullets. My job is to get you to the exfil point. The drive is secondary. Secondary? Her laugh was brittle, bordering on hysterical. You don't even know what's on it, do you? You think this is about offshore accounts? Tax evasion? I don't care what's on it. You should, she whispered, her voice shaking with the sheer gravity of the secret. It's not just corruption. It's treason. Richard Maxwell is selling Project Aegis, a classified defense AI, to the highest bidder. That drive has the encrypted transaction logs, the buyers, the kill orders he signed to cover it up. He's not just running for president to get rich. He's running to get full security clearance so he can sell the entire damn country. The change in Kade was immediate. The casual mercenary indifference evaporated, replaced by something much colder, much darker. He wasn't just a hired gun anymore. He was a predator who just caught the scent of his real prey. He's a hostile asset, Kade said, the words tasting like poison. A door slammed open, far above them. Stairwell B. They're in the stairwell. Lock down the garage. Move, Kade yelled, all business now. He grabbed her hand and pulled, his grip like iron. They practically fell down the remaining flights, bursting through the final door into the echoing expanse of the P4 parking garage. It was too late. A black SUV, its engine already running, screeched around a concrete pillar, its high beams pinning them like rats in a trap. 2 of Maxwell's men, more security, not Chase's tactical equals, but just as deadly, leapt out, their weapons already raised. Kade! Eleanor screamed, diving behind a concrete support pillar. Gunfire erupted, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Kade pushed her down, returning fire with a pistol he'd seemingly pulled from nowhere. Bullets sparked off the concrete, ricocheting with terrifying whines. Kade was good. He dropped 1 man in seconds, but the other had better cover, crouched behind the engine block of the SUV. Kade was pinned. He was focused on the fight. He didn't see the 3rd man. He hadn't come in the SUV. He'd been waiting by the elevator bank. He was flanking them. He saw Eleanor huddled behind the pillar, defenseless. He smiled, raising his pistol, taking his time. Goodbye, Miss Vance. He never fired. Eleanor, seeing him from the corner of her eye, didn't hesitate. She didn't scream or hide. She grabbed a heavy red fire extinguisher mounted on the pillar and with a guttural roar, swung it directly at his head. The thwack of metal on bone was sickening. The man crumpled instantly. Kade used the distraction, putting 2 rounds through the second gunman's shoulder. The man cried out, dropping his weapon. Silence broken only by the ping of a shell casing rolling on the concrete, and Eleanor's ragged breathing. Kade looked at her, then at the man she'd taken down. A flicker of genuine surprised respect crossed his face. Not bad for a journalist. He walked over to the neutralized guard and efficiently zip-tied his hands. "Now," Eleanor said, her voice shaking but firm as she dropped the extinguisher, "give me the drive. We're partners or we're nothing. Your exit is burned. Those men were waiting for you. They knew we'd come here." Kade stared at her for a long second, a silent calculation. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out the USB, and tossed it to her. She snatched it out of the air. "New plan," Kade said, his eyes now fixed on the black SUV the gunman had used. "My extraction is compromised. Theirs isn't." He grabbed her arm. "We're not going quiet." He yanked her to the SUV. They piled in, Kade in the driver's seat. He didn't need keys. The engine was already on. He slammed the vehicle into gear, the tires smoking. "The gate," Eleanor shouted, pointing at the heavy, rolling steel barrier that blocked the garage exit. "It's locked down. We're trapped." Kade just smiled, a terrifying manic grin. He floored the accelerator, aiming the heavy-duty SUV directly at the ramp. "Kade, stop. We'll never make it. It's a steel gate." "They're expecting us to stop," he yelled over the roaring engine as they rocketed up the ramp. The gate loomed, a solid wall of metal. 10 yards. 5. Just before the moment of impact, Kade glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "By the way, your father didn't send me. Your sister did." The world exploded in a screech of tearing metal and shattering glass as the SUV smashed through the gate. The SUV, now a crumpled wreck of metal and alarms, skidded across the wet DC pavement, finally slamming to a stop against a concrete median. Steam hissed from the mangled hood. For a moment, there was only the sound of Eleanor's own ragged breathing and the tink, tink, tink of cooling metal. She was alive. The drive was still clutched in her hand. "Get out!" Kade roared, already kicking open his buckled door. "We have 90 seconds max before local PD and his guys are on top of us." Eleanor fumbled with her seatbelt, her hands shaking violently. Kade ripped her door open from the outside and hauled her out. "What did you say?" she yelled, stumbling after him as he jogged into a dark alleyway. "What did you say about my sister?" "Keep moving, Vance," he snapped, pulling her behind a rank of overflowing dumpsters. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "We ditch the phones now." He ripped the battery from his burner phone and crushed it under his heel, then pointed at hers. She did the same. "My sister is dead," Eleanor said, her voice breaking, the first crack in her armor of rage. "She's been dead for 10 years. Kade stopped, dragging her into the shadows of a recessed doorway. He grabbed her by the shoulders, his grip bruising, forcing her to meet his intense gaze. "She is dead," he said, his voice low and guttural. "But she's the reason I'm here. Sarah was my partner." "Partner? You're a mercenary. She was a trust fund kid who had a problem." That's the story Maxwell wanted. She wasn't just a kid. She was a researcher for a government watchdog group. She was the first one to find the cracks in Maxwell's finances. She was brilliant, and she was clean. "No," Eleanor whispered, the lie she'd been told her whole life crumbling. "She came to me for security when she got too close. The overdose? That was Chase, and forced hotshot, clean and tidy. But before she died, Sarah set up a contingency, a series of encrypted dead man switches tied to a deep web data broker. She was terrified Maxwell would come after her family." He finally let go, pacing like a caged wolf. "For 10 years, I've been waiting. I've been watching Maxwell build his empire on her grave. Then 3 days ago, I got the alert. A new name triggered her final protocol, Eleanor Vance, and a single encrypted file. this address. He tapped his Kemple. Your penthouse prison. Sarah knew if Maxwell ever went after you, it meant you'd found what she was looking for. She didn't send me to save you. She sent me to finish the job. The sirens were deafening now, flooding the main street. Red and blue lights washed over the alley walls. He killed her, Eleanor said, the words a hollow realization. The locket, the gift. It was a threat, a boast. He killed her, and now you have the drive. We can leak it. We can end this right now. No, Kade snapped, his tactical mind overriding his anger. You leak that now, we're dead. Maxwell doesn't just have security. He has assets, intelligence. You said it yourself. He's selling a defense AI. You think he's not using it? He pulled her further into the labyrinth of alleys. We need a secure terminal. We need to get this to someone outside his sphere of influence. I have a place. It's not clean, but it's quiet. They moved for what felt like hours, sticking to shadows, crossing through a dark, forgotten maintenance tunnel under the Potomac, and emerging into a desolate industrial park in Arlington. Kade jimmied the lock on a rusted-out door to a defunct auto body shop. Inside, dust motes danced in the slivers of moonlight. The smell of old grease and stale beer hung in the air. This is it? Eleanor asked, pulling a dirty tarp off a stack of tires. It's off the grid, Kade said, locking a heavy deadbolt. No smart meters, no network. He can't see us in here. He walked to a metal locker and pulled out a battered laptop and a satellite uplink device. This is old school, slow but secure. Give me the drive. I'll slice the data and send it to 3 different continents. By morning, Maxwell will be finished. Eleanor clutched the drive to her chest. The image of Sarah, dead on the cold floor, the image of Richard smiling, offering her the locket, the 6 months of her life stolen. No, she said. Kade froze, the uplink cable dangling from his hand. What did you say? We don't leak it, she said, her voice dangerously calm. He'll deny it. He'll call it a fabrication. He'll use his political machine to discredit us, just like he did to me, just like he did to Sarah. He'll say I'm the one committing treason to destroy a presidential candidate. Vance, this isn't a debate. This is survival. This isn't survival, she shot back, her eyes blazing with a terrifying righteous fire. This is revenge. I don't want him exposed. I want him broken. I don't want a news story. I want a confession. I want him to say her name. I want him to say what he did on tape. You're insane, Kade said, though part of him was clearly impressed. You're not getting near him again. He's hunting us with a $1 billion AI. He'll never stop hunting us unless we hunt him. You want to finish the job for Sarah? This is how. Before Kade could argue, a sudden piercing beep came from his bag. Not the laptop, not the sat link. It was the burner phone Eleanor had used, the one she pulled the battery from. Kade paled. That's impossible. He grabbed the phone. The screen was dark, but the beeping continued, faster now, a proximity alert. Kade, Eleanor whispered, her eyes wide with terror, pointing to the laptop. The laptop, it's turning on. On its own, the laptop screen flickered to life. The camera lens glowed. The screen, however, wasn't booting to an OS. It was just text, black text on a white screen, typing itself out. We see you. Project Aegis is active. You can't hide from me, Eleanor. A metallic clank echoed from outside the shop as the heavy deadbolt on the front door began to slide open, controlled from the outside.